Well, g'day. This is Crafter's Tavern. I'm the DMG, and with me today is DM Scotty. How are you doing?
Great. Happy Halloween, everybody.
There's only the two of us today. AJ sends his apologies, and our other guest had to bail, unfortunately. So there's only the two of us, and we're going to have a quick discussion and lively chat about crafting effects and themes when crafting tiles. So go ahead and ask some questions in the comments. I'm going to try and follow the comments and do all this all at the same time, which is usually what AJ does, so this is going to be very interesting. If there are any problems with the audio, please put it in the comments so that I can try and make adjustments on the fly. Hopefully everything sounds fine. There was a lot of testing that had to be done to get this to work. Okay, so the first thing we were going to talk about is lighting effects. So DM Scotty, you just did the haunted well, where you not only did practical effects, which is the little LED inside the well, you also did surrounding effects for the room as well. So can you just take us through that, and also anything else you may have done in that sort of motif?
Sure, yeah. We've on my channel we've done some stuff with fire and everything, but yeah, you don't have to stop at that. You can use lighting effects in all kinds of stuff. A lot of people in the Facebook group and on the forum have done other lighting effects too, which can be pretty neat. Crystals and things. It can really add that extra kind of little oomph to your encounter and just make it that much more special. So, don't shy away from that kind of stuff. And it's just easier and easier to get these kind of lights. The lights I used for the ghost well were like these little, I can't remember where I got them, unfortunately, but I saw them. I was like, oh, those are perfect. They're like the LED lights, and they're like wedding lights that you can submerge in water, and they twist to turn on, and they're smaller than tea lights. They're about that big, so they're great for hiding in terrain and stuff.
And also, you got to consider when you're making the terrain with those sort of things, you will need to change the battery in the future.
Yes.
I've seen a couple of things where I go, okay, yeah, it's great, it looks fantastic, and you turn it on and off, but when the battery runs out, then what?
Right. I always try to have access to the light.
Yes.
So that's definitely a good tip, DMG.
Yeah. Kevin Watts just told me that the sound quality is excellent this time, so thanks. Yeah, look, I haven't actually done practical lighting effects other than what you saw in the Under the Tavern stuff, where I used actual tea lights, not the LED ones, but ones with actual fire. Because that creates quite a nice mood and a quite nice effect. However, I've stopped doing that for some of the more recent ones purely because of time, and it's quite dangerous with the amount of cardboard and flammable materials around.
Yeah.
And there's me with a camera, and there's cables and all this kind of stuff, and I singed part of my arm on one of the candles, so I'm like, no, okay. It looks great, but it's very dangerous. So using the practical LEDs is a great little thing. And I actually find that you go to the cheap dollar stores and things like that, you can normally get like a pack of 4 or 5 tea lights. Well, at least you can here in Australia, and they're usually like $1 or $2. And I actually find that's how I buy batteries for motherboards, because I repair computers and do computer problem solving. But to buy a battery, just one of those batteries costs like $2 or $3 on its own. But when you buy them in a pack of tea lights, you get five.
Oh,
or
that's
six,
awesome.
You get 5 or 6 of these batteries for like 1/6 of the price. So I actually buy those for other reasons. But going to the dollar store and looking at what they have there for next to nothing in electronics, even little cars and things with little motors. If you wanted to make a little fan that spins or something like that for a science fiction game, you can get one of those little those cars that drive around. You can, they've got a little motor inside. and it's just a matter of figuring out the wiring and putting that motor there and have a little fan on it, and away you go. So there's lots of things you can do to decompile existing cheap products and put together some really cool little bits and pieces. But on the subject of lighting, I've never done actual room lighting when I've played a game. So did you have you done that, where you mood light the room itself where you're playing in?
I have, yeah. I have adjustable, dimmable lights, and I have dimmed the lights. Now there's a kind of a thing between we're being able to see and having the mood. But yeah, even just adjusting down the lights somewhat can still give a nice mood.
Yeah. And then do you have like other lights around, or?
Yeah, I might have lights in the terrain, or usually I'll have like a light with my GM stuff, so I can see I can see my stuff. But yeah, I try not to adjust it too low, but just maybe a little bit to get the mood.
Yeah. Well, I generally play during the day, so in summer when it's very hot here, closing everything up to make it dark would basically just expire from all the heat.
Right.
So that's,
yeah, and in Ohio here we get now it's getting dark pretty fast, so it's pretty easy to do that.
Yeah, we were those day gamers and the day walkers.
I did use black light with my kind of haunted location, and it gave a really neat cast to it. But I would really I'd like to experiment. I'd like to put a challenge out there for people to experiment with, to do a black light setup. Like, get black light paints, or use those kind of paints that are reactive to black lights, and paint your terrain, paint an encounter with that black light paint and use a black light. I bet that would just be spectacular. You could really get a cool effect. I haven't actually done it myself, but I would love to see people do it. I'm going to experiment with it.
Have you ever used luminescent paint? So glow-in-the-dark paint?
I have in other applications, but not on crafting.
Okay.
I find that it doesn't last very long.
Yeah.
And with RPGs, you're spending quite a bit of time doing stuff. So.
Apparently, if you just stick it outside, it recharges.
Right.
Yeah, the blacklight thing sounds great. I mean, what is? I've never really looked into what it costs to get. Are the blacklights cheap, or?
They are. Yeah, you can get bulb. The one I have is actually a long fluorescent bulb.
Oh, okay.
It's in its own light case, but you can get bulbs. You could get fluorescent bulbs that you could put in bendable lamps or something, and have it shine down on the terrain, and then just turn all the lights out, and have that really cool effect. So I think it'd be really neat.
It'd be very cool for one, if you're doing puzzles. You can have your normal tile there, and then the guy casts a spell to reveal magic, and you turn the black light on, and this huge inscription or whatever glows on the tile. That would be very, very cool.
That's a great idea. That's a fantastic idea.
And another one would be if you were doing a horror game or something, and you wanted to illuminate some footprints or something where a creature has been or is coming from or something like that. You can sort of just quickly wave the black light over, and people get an idea of where this thing has been. You could use it atmospherically as well, so that'd be very, very cool. Very, very neat. Yeah, that's awesome. People have started to talk about sound effects in the games in the chat. I'd just like to shout out to Russo Works. His channel's very cool, so if you haven't seen Russo Works, click on his name in the chat section there. His channel's very, very cool, and I hope he does a lot more videos. So with sound effects, what have you experimented with sound effects?
I have, yeah. I found a program that makes it very easy. It's called Sirenscape, and you can download it online, and then you can get sound sets for it. They're actually having software with it that you can make your own sound sets, and I don't know if that's released yet, but you could download the program for free and try it out, I think, but it does cost a little bit of money for the sound sets. But the sound sets are well worth every penny. They're pretty awesome. They also have sound effects in the sound sets, and you can hit buttons to automatically change the moods of the sound set. So if you have creepy forest, you might have, animals making noises and, rain or something, and you can hit another one. It'll take the music out. It'll just have the sound effects. So it's like really quick that and you're not having to fiddle around with a bunch of little dials and everything. So that's really awesome. I'm really a big fan of them. I give a shout out to Sirenscape. But yeah, you can easily just put music in your, whatever music player you use and play the appropriate music.
I've done some experiments with Sirenscape. I actually put it into my home theater system, cranked it up to 11, and
oh wow.
So yeah, when you got like that sort of moody sort of rain effects and lightning, and that can work very, very well. But most of the time when I'm gaming, I don't have the time to sort of change all those settings and do all that kind of stuff. Because the way I game, I make it up as I go along. So if I'm not concentrating on what I'm doing,
right.
all of a sudden the game's like, what do you mean another dragon?
It can definitely be distracting, and it's another thing on your DM plate. So you want to think about that. Because there's already so much on the GM and DM's plate that you want to every little thing you add to your responsibilities distracts from your GMing. So you want to make sure you're comfortable with that and think about that.
And if you're doing like a pre-published adventure, then that's a little bit easier because obviously everything is laid out for you. And if you've pre-laid out the tiles and all that kind of stuff, I just thought, one of the things I could add into the PDF of Under the Tavern that I'm doing is music cues or sound cues. It's a dark, stormy night. Cue thunder.
Right.
Kevin Watts talking about, have you ever used fluorescent paints on minis?
I never have. I never have. It'd be fun to try it out, though, on some.
Yep. I haven't, and again, it's the recharge factor. So you got to it stops glowing in the dark, or it stops being luminescent or fluorescent after a certain time, and you got to recharge it outside in the sun.
Right.
Or at least that's I understand how it works. I may be wrong. If I'm wrong,
But with the black light, you don't have to worry about the luminescence of the paint because the black light will make it glow.
Yeah.
So if you have the black light paint, it won't show up as bright if you paint it on the miniature, but when you use the black light, it's going to go wah. So if you had specifically a black light encounter where you're using black light, it'd be really awesome to have the miniatures as painted that way as well.
Yeah. Spell effects. So you've done a couple of videos on spell effects. I've done really only a few videos on effects like webbing and fire and that sort of stuff. We were just talking before the show the kinds of spell effects it would be. So there'd be like continual effects and instant effects. So a continual effect would be, something that hangs around for several rounds, like a big ball of light or something like that. And an instant effect would be just like a magic missile that's just around for one round. Should you craft instant effects, and does it add to the game? And should you craft continual effects, and does it add to the game?
I think continual effects can be really neat on the table. I had a wizard in my group, and I enjoyed crafting stuff for him, and he was always totally geeked out to have those effects, but like firewalls and things. But yeah, on instant effects, though, I don't really think you should craft that kind of stuff. The only exception might be cone attacks, because if you do a template, like a template for a cone attack, then you can lay it down and see who it hits. Because if you're not playing with grids like we don't, it's harder to tell who it exactly hits with the angle and everything. But if you have a template, you can just lay it right down on the table, and you can see who's in the template and who's not. So I think that like burst templates can be nice, or cone templates. But as far as like magic missile or some kind of flame hands or whatever, some kind of effect like that, or lightning bolt, I don't really think that you should probably waste your time crafting that. Not that you couldn't, but there's so much else you can craft that I wouldn't get obsessed with that.
There's no such thing as wasting your time crafting. Come now.
Well, I guess prioritize your crafting. That's what I like to do. You want to have the stuff that matters, that will be persistent in the encounter or in the adventures, as opposed to something that's bam and it's over,
And also a lot of time when people are talking about grid or gridless, they start to talk about templates. To me, a big fireball flying around is a circle, so that's easy. But when you get to a grid, it's like this staggered rectangular monstrosity thing, and it's like and people go, well, that's more accurate. It's like, how is that more accurate than a circle? A circle is a circle.
Yeah. Generally, what I do is if it's a burst like that, I'll just measure wherever the player wants to hit on the table, and we'll just measure out in a circle around from that point and whatever is hit. Yep. So like on the traditional gridded, you're only going to get a box, so you're going to miss some of the people on the edge. But a circle, you're actually probably going to hit more people. So in the long run, I think that, or in gridless, I think you're actually going to hit more targets than you would in gridded.
I do tend to use fire a lot, so putting down the fire that you would have seen in my videos, where the fire little sort of one inch fire to things, and I fill the rooms with smoke. So all I do is just rip up some cotton balls and just start to throw down more cotton balls as the room fills up with more and more smoke, which obviously from a tactical standpoint, it becomes difficult to see the opponents. And also difficult to breathe. So now you can throw in a couple of simple constitution checks for breathing and perception checks to try and find the enemy. So, that sort of thing can actually alter the way the game is played, which you wouldn't normally take that into account if you're doing theatre of the mind, because it's far too difficult to try and explain where everything is. But when you're using miniatures on a tile, it's much easier when you're just throwing down cotton balls.
It's easy to see, definitely easier to see where the areas of smoke are.
Music. So we talked about sound effects. Do you use just background music, or do you just play occasionally with sound effects?
Sirenscape has both music and sound effects. Some sound effects. I mean, it's not an extensive list of sound effects, but it does have some. But anyways, I do use music a lot in my music player, just on a laptop, and just pick the songs you want, and for the mood you're going for. And I like to. I have them very low in the background. It's perceptible, but it's not. It's not overwhelming. That it's not. It's not like when you're watching a movie where it's you're blowing out of your chair with the music, even exciting parts or whatever. I just have the music just low enough, just so it's people are soaking it in, it's getting in their unconscious, but it's not overpowering.
I just saw a comment from Kevin Watts wanting to know how we can get on a 7D system. If you go onto Facebook and look up 7D system beta test, there is a 7D system beta test group, and you just apply to be in there, and you'll get all the current material that's currently available, so you can have a try at that. If people obviously are on DM Scottish channel, if you don't know who I am, I'm DMG, and I'm developing my own rule system, so that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, for those that don't know.
For those that don't know. So I've only really used music a couple of times. Again, it's it goes back to just so much stuff on your plate that controlling that sort of thing is
Oh, totally, yeah.
My housemate I used to live with was into things like the Swans, so used to have that blaring in the background, which anyone who knows the Swans, that's that can be quite atmospheric. But he also likes German industrial music, so it was more sort of pots and pans clanging than. So
I'll tell you a group I like a lot called Nox Arcana.
Yep.
And they do a lot of instrumental mood music. They've done creepy music. They do fantasy music, and you can get them, on your wherever you buy music, iTunes and that or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever you use. They have all kinds of records with just mostly instrumental stuff, and it's really a great mood setter.
What's a record?
I guess I'm showing my age.
Is that those black disc things? I use those for big templates.
But yeah, Nox Arcana, I would definitely check them out if you're looking for music.
Also, you can, as someone mentioned in the comments here, you can get things like Halloween-themed, music and that kind of background music stuff, or look for movie themes. So, most of my CD collection is just movie themes, and if you can get Lord of the Rings and all that kind of stuff, you've got quite a lot of decent sort of fantasy music in one of those CDs, and you can just pick the appropriate tracks for what you want to be doing at that point. And you can just have it on a loop. So
right,
video
game music is really good too.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy about film music because everybody knows it.
Yeah.
So I prefer to use music that most people in the group wouldn't be familiar with. But that's my thing.
Yeah, no one knows the Diablo theme. I mean, shh.
Right, exactly. And it depends on your group, of course.
Yeah.
If they're video game players or not.
Yep. So in terms of themes, so when you're crafting tile, now obviously with my tiles, I have a very modular, generic set of tiles. But you've done a variety of different tiles, so ice tiles and caverns and sewers and all that kind. I've just started doing sewers. With thematic tiles, what sort of range of tiles should people consider if they were going to make some generic tiles?
Yeah, I mean, the standard stone is always good. That's where we always start. As far as caves and regular dungeon layouts. I guess maybe it depends on your campaign. If you're going to be doing a necrotic campaign and you want to have a lot of dark locations with maybe some obsidian walls or that kind of thing, it'd be really good to do a set like that. Of course, that's more after you've decided on what your campaign is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I find that helpful to, kind of know what I'm going to be, the campaign I have in mind or what I'm going to be running, and then, I already have enough regular tiles that I can use those. But if you're going to make special tiles, even just generic tiles, think about the theme of your campaign maybe. Or if it's a desert, you want to have desert areas, like desert tiles and caves and stuff.
Yeah,
so I think that's what I would start.
Yeah, I mean, and you can create a generic set based on the theme of your campaign. So, for instance, if you were doing a lot of hell type stuff, lava tubes and all that kind of thing, you can have a lot of black tiles with rivulets of red and yellow and white running through them. So you can still have a standard generic set. It's just you've altered the theme for the specific stuff that you're doing. And you can begin to mix and match. So you can begin, like for instance, with my generic sewer tiles, they integrate well with the already existing dungeon tiles. So that was done on purpose so that you're not throwing away, or not throwing away, but you have a whole bunch of tiles that are not going to use because these are now completely different. You've got to make another 80 tiles to do it. You can just use occasional tiles, and there we got you've changed the theme of the dungeon. So it doesn't mean you have to do the entire set again. You can basically just do little bits and pieces to alter the theme. And again, you can do that with the little 3D elements that you put onto the tiles as well. So you can make little changes to the room by, say, for instance, if we take the lava example again, you could do like lava spilling out into the dungeon. You can just create a little spill effect of the lava pouring into a room, with a bit of hot glue and some styrofoam and that sort of stuff. And you can just place those into existing tiles. So you're not having to change your tile set. You can basically just continue on with what you had, but you're creating these other little bits that you can place in as you need them, and continue that way. So there's lots that can be done to alter the thematic look of what you're crafting.
Oh, tons, yeah, tons.
Have you ever done desert stuff?
I have done a little bit, but I generally haven't had adventures in the desert, so I really haven't needed it.
Yeah. So I mean, I just think because of Diablo 2, there was a whole like desert themed level,
Right.
with multiple dungeons in it. So
Right.
it is there. One or two people have asked me about desert stuff, and I probably will do them. But I think it's further down the track in terms of the generic stuff.
Right.
But yeah, also obviously you got to think about the colors, and you'd be more yellows and browns and whites as opposed to black and white and grey.
Right, like a sandstone.
Yeah. And far less green. Alrighty. People are still talking about music by the look of it in the comment section. That seems to be a big one.
Yeah.
Oops, I've just clicked off.
These days, though, it is a lot easier to put music in your game. It's just physically easier because of, handheld, laptops and, tablets and all that stuff. It's just so much easier to actually, and you're good to go as opposed to trying to put a record on or find it on a tape or something. Oh, God, I'm showing my, trying to do that,
Damn, I'm showing my age again. What the hell is a tape?
So, yeah, I mean, it is a lot easier these days to do it.
Do you use a lot of technology? I know your daughter plays via Skype.
Yeah.
Do you use any? I mean, that's just putting a camera there effectively. But do you use any other technology or anything?
No, not really. Yeah, I just have a laptop or a couple laptops, and that's pretty much all I need.
I'm trying to win AJ's $100 prize for best live game.
Cool.
So I'm up to about 5 webcams at the moment.
Really? Wow. That's awesome.
It's very difficult to run more than 4. So
I can imagine. Yeah, and actually run the game at the same time.
And run the game and concentrate on all of this. So I'll probably end up spending like $700 to win 100. No, not that much. But
hey, it's the principle of the thing.
It's the principle of the thing.
Yeah.
Dude's going to offer me a prize. I am going to try and win it.
I would really like to see what you come up with because we've talked about this subject before, and it's not easy to do this type of thing.
Yeah.
Run a game and actually get a good. But we did talk about in the past about taking cutaway stuff and all that kind of stuff, and not necessarily doing all the production at once. Trying to do it at the table.
So it really comes down to that post-production.
Right, exactly.
I will record the game with multiple viewpoints, so they'll all record at the same time, but it'll look similar to what this looks like. So you can see multiple. So you can see the table, you can see the players, and you can see the dice rolling system as well.
Right.
And then also bits about the monsters will come up. So that may be put in later, but I'm working on some software to actually throw it up as I'm doing it. So I could actually do it live, but it's because of the bandwidth issues to actually have it in a higher resolution so that people can actually read what's on the screen and see what's on the screen.
Oh, right.
It's better to record it, so I can record it in HD and then upload it and do any editing. I cut out nonsense and cut out rules discussions. Anything that just slows down the game.
It does, yeah. It definitely does.
And then break it up into maybe 15-minute to half-hour segments so that it's a little bit more digestible, I suppose, than 4-hour epics.
Right. And we were talking about effects and crafting and everything.
Yep.
And if you're into the crafting, you could take it beyond RPGs. There are tons of tabletop games, especially these days, a lot more than Warhammer. In the old days, there's lots of those. You could take it into there's a system called Song of Blades and Heroes, which is a great little skirmish game, and you could do skirmishes with all this kind of stuff. So yeah, these tiles and terrains could definitely be used for more than just role playing.
Yeah. Alrighty, well, we're only going to do a half-hour show today because there's only the two of us. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. I know it's very last minute when we put the link up, but
yeah, sorry guys.
That's all right. Halloween and stuff, and it was tax time for me, so tax department's going to have their cut.
Oh yeah. You don't want them coming after you.
That is my money.
No! Not my tiles, no!
I will cause a revolution. No, you won't.
Gun.
We'll stop making roads.
Right.
They have me there.
There's that.
Alright, so I'm just going
to... Go forth and craft!
Go forth and craft! Alright, thank you everybody, and we'll see you later.